Okay, good evening all. Hope you're all sitting down and that everything goes well tonight. It's hard to believe Mary tells me it's 3 weeks since we had our last normal live stream. It's now coming from the Free State, Ireland. And Mary, put down the volume. Good evening all. Hope you're all sitting down. We are watching it on a second. It's hard to believe Mary tells me it's 3 weeks since we had our last normal live stream. That's it. Okay. Sorry about that. We're not used to this new home, and Mary is watching it on a tablet so that you can see bits and pieces coming in. Now, as we have the sound turned off, we'll be relying upon ye to send us a message if the sound fades off or whatever. If anything goes wrong with this live stream, what I am intending to do is that I will put up a video version of a similar one afterwards. It's very hard to rely upon the Wi-Fi. I'm using Vodafone tethering from a phone, so it's much better than a little other system that we have. So we've nothing like the bandwidth that we had when we were in Portugal, but hopefully all will go well. It's great to see us all back. Hard to imagine that it is 3 weeks. And a lot have happened in that period. We're starting to return to normal, but not the same normal. I think we're going to possibly continue in this digital world that we are living in. One thing we must say is that the group has been existing in this digital format, and we've also tried to include the people who aren't involved, and there's quite a few of them, and we tried to get them with the little yellow sheet with the form to try and get them to come in. And I've been trying on WhatsApp, and I've been trying sending emails to them, but the difficulty is that they are probably not there. They're probably not even looking at this format. I really need your help to find these people and take them by the hand and bring them into this digital world. I don't know why they don't want to come in. Is it that they are frightened? Are they afraid that there's too much technology? What is it? Or they say, well, look, I haven't gone in yet. Why should I go in now? But the way the world is going, they're going to have no choice. So they might as well be joining us in the way that we got into it. Lots of people 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks ago would not believe that they are doing what they are doing now. So maybe ye might know the magic words to say to these people. The yellow sheet and sending out stuff on it was to try and get other people to come into it, other than the ones that we have already got in our group. But unfortunately, I don't think we have gained anyone by it. But we will continue, and I've been sending out texts to people and emails to people. So we're working through it, and we're trying to get the little hitches that are in the system out of it. There are little hitches, and as we go along, we will become aware of them. So without very much more, let's get back into the challenge and have a look at what has come in. So we'll get you to that spot now. Okay, so this is the stuff that has come in. Okay, I have made it that colour. If you noticed when you logged on at the beginning, it might have said May Challenge. I've made that mistake too. Some mistakes come to haunt you. I put in May for some unknown reason when I was putting this up, and it got through the system, and there was still one version left. And wouldn't you know, when I was putting it up for the stream, I would put up the wrong one. So I tried to change it. Hopefully it's changed for some of you. The reason why I've used this colour and this sort of a top is that it will distinguish itself from the live streams that are up on YouTube. And the idea of the colours to make it look different and whatever, it's probably a gaudy colour, but it works if it gets attention. Right then. Oh, good. Okay, yeah, thank you. It's great to see you. I've been doing that to quite a few people. There may be people joining us from Meetup, because we had Meetup live stream put in there as well for today. We're trying in all the different areas that we can, and the more people that join us, the better. You're more than welcome. Great to see you coming up there on the chat. And this is the way we have been operating for the last 5 or 6 weeks, and we will be continuing, I suppose, with a lot of stuff. So the issue that we're having is that to understand what this challenge was about, some people felt confused at the end of it, and that's no harm, because at least if we know people are confused, we can figure out what has gone wrong. This is the way I laid it out for WhatsApp and to put on the website, and it was mainly the idea of this challenge was to get you used to see if you understood what we were talking about during the live streams. Were you getting your head around aperture priority and shutter priority and spot focusing and all those sort of things? So the idea is that you would have a photograph and you would show us the photograph, and then you would do something with it to improve it. And the reason why I was looking for the vlog was that it's very hard sometimes when you're commenting on photographs, when you see the photograph of that has come up and you make your comment, and the person who's listening to the comment is probably hurtling bits and pieces at the screen at you, saying, well, you really don't understand where they're coming from. And that has happened to me when we've had our little Skypes during the week, when I've been talking about, so people would explain to me what had actually happened in the actual photograph, and that made a difference. So that was the reason behind the idea of the little vlog, was to try and give me an idea of what you were doing. And also then I mainly wanted it to be uploaded on the website, on our system that we have there for uploading. It is, I think, the simplest and easiest way of getting stuff up there by far and away. I think it's even more complex to go via email. But when it got onto the yellow sheet, what's written here and what's on the yellow sheet is slightly different, and that makes sense, because we were trying to get the people in who weren't participating in the normal way, and some of the stuff has come in by email, which is great, because we were able to sort it out and figure it out and figure out the different bits and pieces, and they're all hopefully in the system. One person was very organised and he sent it in both ways. But the simplest way for putting the stuff together is if it comes in on the website, and I think it's also the simplest way for people to be able to submit their stuff into it. So that's what the position. So I'm going to work around the combination of the two different views as to what it was about. So the first one has come in from Gary, and Gary saw this photograph. That's his first photograph that he sent in to us, and this is what he says in his vlog. It was pointed out to him. I revisited the site. That's what we're talking about. Going back to create the photograph, because we're talking about what makes a really good photograph and what it takes to do it. All right. So he saw it and he went back to it. Right. The first photo was taken and he gives us the specifications of it. That's very good, because you're getting your head around it. Yesterday was a good morning, and I brought my long lens 50 to 200. So what he's talking about is he saw the way he wants to try and create the photograph. I used aperture priority at f8. He used 400 ISO and 1250 of a second. He was using the aperture priority was what he was setting it for. He wanted, by that it was assuming that he was looking for a medium depth of field, right? That was the reason why he used f8, right? And then the 400 was, he said he can get away with that on his camera, but his shutter speed of 1250 of a second is more than adequate to be able to hold the lens, even if it was out at its 200mm extension. And maybe that's what he was looking for, the large shutter speed, the fast shutter speed. So it wouldn't be aperture priority if you were to follow that logic around. It should have been shutter priority, because he wanted to have the shutter speed fast so that he wasn't going to get a shake. All right. I find it difficult to get right without overhead wires. That I framed this inside taking, hiding the trees. All that was excellent. I inverted the selection, done on the levels of which he viewed the picture in black and white, which is perfect. So this is what he came up with. Okay. And I had a look at it, and I first thought what he had done was that he'd taken a second photograph and put it in here to get the steeples in. But what I think he did was, what he's explained was that he made the outer bit darker, and by bringing his little marching ants all the way around here, because there is a relatively sharp line all the way around there as a result when you go into it, probably caused by that. I'm assuming that's what he did, but I think, he's really using his head. He thought of a photograph that he had in the past. He knew what he wanted to get into it, and he went about getting the image that he wanted. I hope that everybody, when I'm making these comments, remove themselves from the photograph and think of it being somebody else's photograph. So nothing that I say is meant as a criticism, because everybody's at a different level. I'm talking about something that we can all learn from. And when we look through this and we look, Gary is here, good man, Gary, we're talking about you. When we look through that, we see that the towers in the background, and he achieved it with his long lens. Now, one of the advantages or disadvantages of the long lens, or using it as a long zoom, is that it foreshortens everything. Right, so that's why, perspective-wise, those church looks at it and is much closer, like it just looks like it's right in behind the wall, and that is achieved because of the zoom, and that was the effect of the zoom, which makes it very impressive. But it upsets the perspective. Now, maybe that's what you want. All right, and it worked very well, and whatever you did, you're in the top 3. So you did very well. Everybody else who looked at the photograph and voted on it thought a lot of the photograph. So that was a success. So well done, Gary. This is all that I did to it. Just darkened it down on the outside. And what I did was, you see there's a kind of a sharp line here by whatever you did. I just got the blur tool and brought the blur tool down along here this side, so it doesn't have the sharpness of the line that that side has. So that's what I did, and very interesting. Well done. You want to get one bit brighter or darker. That's fine. That makes sense. This one comes in from Pat. And his famous dog, and he likes the way he sleeps. Image 1 and image 2 I cropped using a flash and +3 to enhance and zoom. So what he did was he used the flash to put in a bit of light into the foreground. You can see the catch light coming in here, and then the +3 to make it a little bit darker, and cropped in tighter. He said, I used flash and ISO +3. I don't know if that's the way you would say it. It might be better to say that you reduced it by 3 stops. When you do it in exposure compensation, it very often does it in ISO, but it's not the only spot that it can happen in. It's not wrong what he said, but it's something that for the more advanced people, when you say it's not really it is the ISO that gets changed if you look at it on it, but sometimes it can also be achieved with shutter speed and with aperture. It'd be more correct to say by 3 stops. So that's a shot. Well done. This was put in by Irene, and that was a photograph she had taken, and this is what she says about it. It was taken with intelligent auto. It was not sharp. I took another one below using shutter priority, right, because she was using shutter priority. Now, she hasn't given us her shutter speed, so that was because she wanted a fast shutter speed, because she didn't want the insect moving around. That makes sense. She used spot metering and spot focusing. Right, difficult to get spot metering on such a small little animal on this occasion. Spot focusing, yes, absolutely critical. And from Irene's previous one that she had done, her spot focusing and spot metering on her photograph, she's really working in that area, and this is what it was all about. ATISO. I don't know what that means. So she's screaming at me, and that's what she got as a result. Stunning photograph. What I also like about it, the format in which it is cropped. That's probably 16:9, and it fills up the full screen, and it's sharp, and it's really a superb shot. It's in the top 3 as well. Okay, next one was sent in by Barney. And this is where you kind of, you shouldn't always be shooting, and Barney has, when you listen to what he says, you shouldn't always be shooting at the camera height that your camera happens to be at. It is, there are other options. So this is what Barney's had to say. Handle this image, result of handling he grabbed it. I wanted to take the opportunity to include the passing figures in the picture of the overall shot. I retook the shot at the waterfall. He decided to go down lower and to get the foreground in, groups of people posing, burnt out sky and somewhat. Okay, so this is what he did. Same shot, but he went down lower. Right, and isn't it absolutely enormously different compared to the previous one? And I had a little look at this, and I did a little bit of work on it. And because when you are doing these exercises, you're talking about trying to get an exhibition print at the end of it. And the way I think you go about taking photographs is, one, you set yourself up for success. So you go when the lighting is good. You go to a situation where you find a position that is correct. You do as much housekeeping in the photograph as possible, getting this exposure as correctly as you can. Do as much housekeeping in the photograph and exposure at the time of taking it. If you're a beginner, you just use automatic or program or whatever, but when you go, and that's your first shot you take, but then after that you go and you say, what am I trying to achieve here? What are the important points in what I have learned from the stream? What am I looking for here? And in this case, going down low has made a huge difference in photograph. These people are moving around, so you can't go with a very slow shutter speed if you want to make the waterfall more milky, because that's not an option. So you have to decide whether you're going to shutter priority or whatever. But you do want to get depth of field from the foreground right into the background. And you remember I was talking about hyperfocal distance. So hyperfocal distance is what would come in here. So upon what we have learned, this is a shot that would require aperture priority to be able to get from the foreground into the background, all in focus. Right? Using your thirds as well to see about composition, and using your hyperfocal distance, because when we were talking about depth of field, we said that 1/3 of the distance in front and 2/3 of the distance behind was in focus. So you're looking for an aperture that is small, so that you're going to get a great depth of field in order to get this here sharp, unless you don't want it sharp. Right, and then it becomes a different issue. If you use aperture priority and focus on the waterfall over here, this will be out of focus. It's dependent upon the hyperfocal distance, and this is a great shot provided by Barney in order for us to analyse it and to look at it. Also, if it was going in for exhibition, this little chappie is very important, but he's at the side of the photograph and he's really bringing us over. It's a pity he wasn't over there, And this bit here, white in the foreground, is taking your action, and this blob up here is taking your action. A good idea is to squint at the image and see where the bright bits are, or whatever. So none of this is meant as a criticism of the person or the photograph. It's giving us this huge opportunity to be able to talk about the photograph and what could be changed within it. So that's what I changed around in a couple of seconds. I filled up the house here that was causing trouble, and I planted a few trees over here. Right, this bit of water here was very bright and taking your eye, and I took it away from it, and I took this chappie away here to improve the photograph. You can agree or disagree with me, but that's what I did with it. You might have a different view about it, or you might say, God, I go back there again. That's a great location, and I will know all these things, and I will set it up differently. And then I went and did another shot after that, and I made it into a different format so that this rock in the front wasn't becoming a part of it. So that's what I thought about on that one. This one came in from Etna, and she has a nice little what she had to say about it. She likes taking it at this bird feeder, take photographs of the birds, and it's quite difficult. The first picture is an example, and the second picture of this landed, and I didn't have to move while I was out in the garden camp. I also used a zoom, which is what you use while in P mode with a setting. So it was in program mode, and she read what the settings were: 160 of a second at f4.4, and it was 400 ISO. So the little nerd in the camera did a very good job. I cropped the image to remove some of the branches. The blurred happens part. I think it's a fairly good image of a small bird, and it is. Right, so this is what she came with, right, and it is. Right, now whether we like it or not, when we are doing photographs, you take the photograph, you do the best you have with your settings, and then when you come back, 99.99999% of them have to go through Photoshop, if they are digital, to bring it to that next level. And in this case, this is an example of where Photoshop is going to do a huge amount of advantage to it. She got exactly what she wanted to achieve. I'm not disputing that for 1 second. But if it's a bright colour that's out of focus in the background, the closer it is to red, the more it will take your attention away from the bird. So these colours out here is taking your attention away from the bird. So I went playing with it, and this is what I came up with. And I think it's a stunning photograph. I have taken away the mad red colours in the background, and I made any of them that are there are green, and I cropped it into a square format, and I darkened the whole thing down. And when that photograph is put into levels, in 2 seconds it jumps from one to the other. And so you can see when I'm talking about how important the settings are, and the exposure, maybe exposure compensation, having a look at the histogram. If we've a chance towards the end of this, I will get back and I'll show to you what it looked like in Photoshop. But that's a huge improvement. Now, if that was to be judged now with this new image, would you all be inclined to give it more? Would you be inclined to give more for any of the ones that I have done, or not? Maybe not. Now, this one is from Susan, and Susan, as always, surprises me with absolutely super stuff. And what is absolutely brilliant in this one is these 3 flowers. They are really so well laid out, so well positioned. I think this is a super shot, and let's see what she had to say about it. It was overexposed with a bright area on the right. To improve this, I moved the position into the corner to avoid the bright reflection which is from the window. I then opened in Photoshop, but I was unable to make any improvement in levels. I then adjusted the colour in Quick Edit. Right, now this is what I did with it. Right, this is, oh, that's what she did. Oh, that's what I did. Oh, sorry. That's what she did. Okay. She got rid of her reflection. That's specular reflection, and it's a pain in the butt. And it comes from, we've often heard me talking about the angle of incidence equal to the angle of reflectance. And this is one of the occasions where this, and she solved the problem compared to her first image. Let's go back to her first image, where she's got a really glare there, and you get it by moving the angle. When you move the angle, it doesn't reflect. Now, the other challenge with this one that can be improved with housekeeping is that because this here is so close to the background, that's not out of focus. Do you remember we were talking about our depth of field? This is where our depth of field can come in to help us. And that sharp line there needs to be blurred, and the background needs to be blurred. Now, I don't know if the file information comes through here for us. No, it doesn't, because it's gone through Photoshop. We don't know what aperture and what shutter speed and whatever that was being used. I don't know, did she tell us? No, she didn't tell us that information, but she knows that information herself. So if you're to bring the cup more forward, right, make it a smaller aperture to force the background to go out of focus, and do your spot focusing on your cup or on your flower, and bring it out. It is too close to the background, but what makes this photograph are those 3 flowers and the positioning of them and the way that it goes in, and that's not an easy task to do, and to be able to do that is absolutely brilliant. So that's what I did with it. I just blurred it around the outside, and because like it was the background that was taking away from it. Because I only spent a few minutes working on it. Maybe you could work on it a little bit more. But you want to create the best possible photograph you can, best exposed, so you've got the least amount of work to be done in Photoshop. I don't believe in spending hours and hours in Photoshop, but I think we used to go into the darkroom and do everything, where I think now, I think Photoshop and doing these things to it are important. You may not, I'm just showing you the idea of having the background more blurred, and I blurred out this green fella here as well, because it kind of added into it. There's a lovely circular motion taking place there. Why it didn't work for you in Photoshop, I don't know. This one was put in by Bonnie. And this one was shot at 200 of a second, f3.7, and it was at 125 ISO. I don't know what she says. We look at what she says about it afterwards. Okay, the settings used was f4. The challenge was to help to understand the different settings and make me use them, show which a difference it makes. Right, okay. And if you go by the yellow sheet, that's what it lays out with project 1 and project 2, which is fine, which is what I'm trying to get you to do, trying to get you to use. And this is all. The f-stop she used was f4, and writing it down like this for yourself is your exposure was 600 ISO, focal length was 9 millimeters. Metering was pattern, and it was fair enough. Is a perfect one too. Is exposure. That was exposure compensation. You reduce it by 1 1/3 to make it darker, right? You did that in exposure compensation, right? I don't know what you used. Was it program? Was it aperture priority? Was it shutter speed? In order to achieve this, this 9 millimeters is probably I don't know if that's actually what we are getting, because it's to do with the focal length of your lens, what that should be, and 9 will be a very, very wide angle. And I would have assumed, maybe not, that you had zoomed in to get some of the photograph, or maybe you were using what's that one up close? The word is gone for me. Macro, right? And this is the shot that you came up with at the end, right? And you can see the exposures. It was 4 megabyte pixel. That's perfect, and that's what you came up with by darkness, and you had learned it. Now I don't know which one of the systems that you had used on it, but you learned what was needed to be learned, and that's what this challenge was all about. And that was what I did to it afterwards, right, in Photoshop. I changed the levels, and I gave it a little bit of a glint around the side of it, right? So that's the one that this was going into Photoshop. Photoshop brings the magic into it at the end of it, right? Because there's nothing wrong with the photograph that you've taken, but that's all the camera can do within its system. The magic is the magic that you can do yourself. That last bit, and don't feel guilty about doing it. There's nothing wrong with doing it in Photoshop. It brings it, I think it brings the magic to the actual photograph. And maybe if that had gone into the judging session as that version rather than the previous version, I think it was to be judged now. I think that it would go up in viewing, and that was what we had. What I did on that one. This one came in from Maura, and another one of the top 3. And I was talking to her, and she was really going according to using her equipment and what was involved in it, and not doing Photoshop so much on it. I set the camera to aperture priority. She went to aperture priority. I was very pleased with the same results. Settings were f7, right? So she went for f7 because she wanted to get a good bit of depth of field. Exposure was 1/400th of a second, right? Well, that will mean that you'll be able to handhold it. She used ISO 400. That's perfect because her camera can well cope with it. Metering mode was spot metering. Exposure program was aperture priority, okay. And white balance was set for a dull day. So she started to change the white balance around. Okay, because what was happening under that condition was that the dull day was assuming that there was going to be more blue in the sky. Moving the white balance around, yes, you can do it where you're doing it there, but it might be handier and easier for you to do it in Photoshop afterwards. And wonderful things can be done by changing the white balance when you are taking the photograph. And also, if you had shot it in RAW, which I know you're not going to do, you've got total control over what balance the camera is set for afterwards. So that's very, very interesting. And this is the photograph that she then came up with, which is superb. Alright, it's all worked for what, and the colour balance change really has made a super distance. The blueness in the sky, the blue overside, the white balance change has really achieved what she wanted to achieve, and look what it has done to it, right? If you were using, I don't know if you use spot focusing, no, but if you were to use spot focusing on this, you could spot on this. Right, and you could allow it to be in aperture priority, a much bigger aperture, to knock the background even more out of focus. All right, and in the second shot, then you see this bit is cropped into it that wasn't in the first one. All right, but what she was trying to achieve was the use of the settings, which has been achieved. I played around with it, and I cropped it off to the side. And I brightened it and darkened it up a little bit to get kind of more vibrant type shot. You know, the other one is equally as good, and what Maura wanted to achieve was well within what she wanted to do. And this was just a different way of presenting it. And I just was playing around with it, and I said that will be another way of presenting it for the final image, because there's no criteria laid down. You can do whatever you want to when you're putting it into the challenge. So I just put that one in there. This one came in from Mary Mack, and it is taken in the Botanic Gardens. And I think Mary has gone more according to giving her blog about what the photograph was about. All right. And then she went and did her little bits and pieces with it then afterwards. And this is what she ended up with. It was 500 of a second at 2.8. So there's an ISO was 100. You could have put up the ISO in that shot because it was obviously a dullish type day, and that's why it is so blue and overcast. And then she did this in Photoshop, adding in this little fella. So that was her learning curve on this particular challenge, and doing it this way. So I went and redid it, and this is the way I did it. I put a little black line around the side of it, right? And I also changed the colour balance, all right? And this is what I did. That was the blue that was in it, and that's the way I changed the colour balance in the actual hand, all right? So that was the images that all came in, all right? And you're all wondering now, the top three was A, was one of them, C, which was Irene's, and the other was H, was Maura's one. They were all the top three marks, not a lot between them. And the one that came out on top was A, which was Gary's one. So Gary's one will be the one going on to the front of the home page of the website and up on Instagram. And we'll probably put up the other two as well that came in the top three on Instagram. So the ones I would like to talk to you about that made a huge difference with what I did was this one from Etna, open with Photoshop, to bring it to this. I presume the stream is still going. Oh, that's good. I am very lucky. I was afraid it was I wasn't even going to get this far. So this is the one as it comes up. So I brought up the levels, and if you look at the levels, you see that it's exposed correctly as far as the histogram is concerned, but there's contrast to be gained. Look, you can pull that in there a little bit, and then you can do that to it. You can make the whole thing darker, all right, by bringing it over here. And you see the huge difference that makes in the photograph. That's the way it started. That's the way it ended up. And then all I did to the photograph after that then was to crop it. All right, so I'll just leave it as is. I'll cancel all that and I'll take it out. All right, I'll leave it as it was. So that's what I did. The other one that is of interesting that I did a change on, that is of interest to explain to you, was Bonnie's one came we'll look at Bonnie's one because that's quite interesting. Open here. When she changed the when she changed for the exposure compensation, and you look at the histogram, you see what's happened to the histogram. It has pushed it over to one side. So the improvement version. Now, if you, as in Irene's one in the last challenge, if the histogram is off and you save it by pushing it over to one side, it's only a compromise. It's never as good as if it was right in the first place. So that's why I'm saying to you to get the very, very best photograph at the very beginning. This is not a criticism. This is just to explain to everybody else how we can learn. So if we pull it back in there, see the way it punches up the whole thing again. All right, and I think by using the exposure compensation, which what I'm guessing is what you had done to make it darker, you probably have overdone it, right? And that's why the histogram has slipped off, right? I know you didn't. You were only thinking about the camera and the settings on the camera, and you didn't do this as a part of it. But if you're putting it into an exhibition or whatever, I think every image has to go through Photoshop. The simplest, but not spending a huge amount of time in it. So that's what you can do with it. And then to put the glitter into it that you saw in the shot that I gave, what I did was I just got the dodge tool in mid-tones and I put the exposure up fairly high, and I made this a little bit bigger, and I got that to shine out a little bit more in the middle. And then what I did was I made this a little bit smaller, and I just put a little bit of highlight along the side of the images, just to give it a little bit of sparkle. It's still your photograph, and it's just that little bit extra that has been done in Photoshop, and then maybe darken it in, right? So that's what I did to it to change it around, and that's the way it was when it went to into the judging system. I'm not criticizing it, I'm just saying what can be done. You probably didn't go to that last stage because you were going by the way it was on the yellow sheet, which I can understand, right? So that's that one. There was another one I wanted to show you. Oh yes, Mary Mac's one is an interesting one for what you can learn from it, right? And how I corrected the colour balance on it. Okay, and how I put the little yoke in there. I'll show you how I did both of them. I went... Oh, Pat, oh, good man, Pat. Good to have you. What am I going to do? Oh, Control L. Control L bring the histogram is perfect, so it's not nothing wrong with the exposure there, but there's a problem with the color balance. There's various places you can do color balance in, right? And I tried them all and none of them worked very well, but the one that worked best for me of all was I went to this middle one here, which I sampled for mid gray, and I put the mid gray there, and that's all I did to it. Look, and you see the huge dip, that little mode. See, it's gone bluey cyan there, and look at all that's gone out of it, and it's corrected that color balance challenge that was in. So I said okay to that. If you want to put a little black line around, there's various ways of doing it, but you go up here to your rectangular tool, making.
And Iron Conquer, Gary.
Oh, good, Gary. You're famous now. Surround the drink for everybody. It's like getting a hole in one. Oh, that didn't come in there. Why was that? Okay. I put the little marching out that way. Then you go right click. You come down to stroke. It would be blue if I left it. You can change the colour to anything you want. It will make it blackish. OK, an 8 point, put it around the side of it, and then take that away from it, Control D, deselects it, and that's where the little black line is around it, and that's what I did, and that's how I did it on that one. Now, I'm not going I'll close this off and not save it, so it'll go back the way it was. Okay, so that's all I have to say about them. I'm very, very pleased with the way you've all progressed. I hope you are all learning a huge amount from where we were. It would be lovely to be able to do a workshop or whatever, but that's way down the line. Hopefully we might be able to do another couple of live streams or something on Skype or something somewhere. You've got so good at it now. Don't give up on it, because if you drop yourselves now and forget and not do all these sort of things, you will forget it. And I'm very, very thankful to all of the people who put stuff in, because without your stuff I've got nothing to talk about, and both you and hopefully everybody who is looking at it will learn something from it. Remove yourself emotionally from the photographs when we are talking about them, because there's no criticism of you, and everybody is at a different level, and it's a chance that we can all hopefully learn from it. Now, so that's the story on that. Now, there's another challenge coming up for next month, and it is to do a slideshow. And it's now been put back into the hands of the photographic group again. So it'll be coming out from the committee with the criteria and whatever, probably using the same sort of a system that we've been using up to this. My views on it is that if you want to see the way we did it the last time, if you go to the live streams that are on the here on YouTube, it was live. I went and checked it, and it wasn't that easy to find where it was. It was on live stream 7. It was the one about ISO, and it was a timestamp of 41 minutes in. And that's where you go to see how I did it the last time on it, right? So if you're going to lay it out as a project for the next time, my suggestions for it are that you set a theme for whatever, or you make it into a journalistic type system where somebody goes, takes 12 photographs of their garden, 12 photographs out in the park, 12 photographs of anything, whatever they want, whatever you decide. I suggest you do it at a ratio of 16:9. All right, because that's the full screen size. I suggest that they are done horizontally mainly, because that's the way the slideshow will work best. And then you can make the slideshow up the way I have made it up. You can make it up in Photoshop Elements, and it can be either in an MPEG-4 format or a WMV format, which were the two formats that we were using. Also, technically, you have to be very, very careful of the music that you use. I have found that out from the one that we did that I put up onto YouTube. YouTube did not like some of the videos, and some of the videos that I tried to put up on the live stream wouldn't go up as well, and I was wondering why. So they object to it because their little algorithms go around and they find copyright music within it. So on some of the videos we used music, and I am to blame for one of them in particular that we did, because I put music, helped to put music onto it, and it was from a CD, and Mr. YouTube knew about it. So when you're doing this, if you want to go up onto YouTube, you have to be careful of copyright, and if you use the copyright free stuff, there is no problem. So that's the challenge that the photographic group have put out for you. I would presume that it should go out on Friends of Anoiga, and the same information go out on the website, and it will be the normal system for putting it up. I would say, yes, we will accept stuff coming in by email, but that's only for people who don't know this system and want it to be sent in this way. What way they intend to judge it, I don't know. Were you thinking of getting somebody who does the audio-visual stuff to come along and view it and give a comment on it, or were we going to put it up onto the system and let everybody come in and view it themselves. Now, there is a limit of 2 megabytes on the system that on the website of putting it up. So if your slideshow is over 2 megabytes in size, you have to contact me and I will find an alternative way for you to put it up. And we can also change it for people as well. So that's one of the issues. So when you are making it, don't make it at the smallest possible size, because we had that the last time round, and Maura will tell you that she made it at the smallest size. We put it up and it just didn't work. We had to go back and do it at the medium size. If you do it at the large size, it's too big and it clutters up the system as well. So it's trying to get those compromised. Now, all these issues will arrive while we were doing it, as it did the last time round when we went to do the slideshow, but we got away with it the last time. And it was a huge learning curve for everyone. So my ambition now is to try and get the people in, those who are afraid to come in and join us on YouTube, those who don't like this world. You do not have to have a smartphone to do it. It can all be done on a laptop. When we open up more, they can go into a library and do all these things in a library. The live stream can be viewed after the event. So, and we will take them by the hand and bring them, because I would hate to see them being lost. And this looks like the way we will be going forward. Right then, so looking forward. Thanks for having you along. I am so pleased that the Wi-Fi didn't run out or break down in the system. And we look forward to the next occasion when we have our live stream. So goodbye to all, and I will leave you with the slideshow that we all put together when we were in the lockdown situation. So have a great night and enjoy yourself. I look forward to seeing you all. Bye.